Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Yet another edition of the DXC Tech Talk series. Really excited to be with you today. I'm joined by Troy Richardson and Dr. Chris Nokkentved, the CTO and General Manager for our Enterprise Apps and Process business. The key topic that we really want to go through today is talking about what I think is actually the impedance mismatch that's going on in the enterprise as they try to become digital environments, but don't really fully think through what an impact the core enterprise processes and the industry processes have on how the employees and clients actually get a true end-to-end digital experience. And so we're going to talk about that a bit today with our speakers. The other thing that we'll certainly do is we follow up these series typically with a set of crowd chats. Where we allow for an interactive discussion via social media that helps to really create a longitudinal conversational stream, a collaboration, if you will, in a way that really isn't possible in typical Twitter-styled models. So we'll create a longitudinal record, and we'll allow people to join from multiple different social media structures, whether that be LinkedIn or Twitter or others, so that everyone can kind of join in on the discussion as we wrap up today. So without further ado, I'm really going to jump in a little bit to our key topic. I did have one housekeeping item that I think is really important, and that's I always try to recognize people inside of DXC who have had a really substantial impact on the clients, and I've received some written congratulations and thank yous from a client who during the recent Petya outbreak actually went well above and beyond in helping them to really bring 10,000 desktops back up and running in their environment at the same time that we were trying to actually close a large deal. And so not only did Glenn Augustus, who's a senior architect in the group, come forward and help the client get the best possible transformational deal, but at the same time he actually jumped in with both feet, coordinated the DXC response services, and helped to create really a very well mitigated response to the Petya outbreak, which I know unfortunately a lot of people globally undertook, and they know what that means because it wasn't just malware, it was wipeware, and that rapid response to reinstantiation and reconstitution of business was important. So I really want to thank Glenn for his hard work and dedication to our clear values and making sure that our clients come first. So Glenn, thank you very much. So now let's jump in. So when I really think about the enterprise processes, one of the things I recognize is that a lot of digital firms have really focused a huge amount of their effort on what I'll call the front office and helping the clients and customers or future customers gain an experience that is very differentiated and very intimate as they try to acquire a service or a product or interact in some way with the company. And that's all well and good, and we've been doing that for years. And there are some real mastery that goes into that, typically led by the CMO and their team, trying to continually increase intimacy and bring that client back because of the experience that they provided. The problem that I begin to see is that as you really begin to think about the overall information supply chain, when that transaction, let's just say that I finally do create that order, begins to come into the back office, very often what's happened is that there's an impedance mismatch between the just-in-time and very intimate information-driven world of the client and what actually employees and partners have to experience on the inside of IT in the back office in order to clear that transaction in a timely fashion. And in my experience, we're beginning to recognize that there are huge opportunities for both revenue improvement in terms of revenue recognition and other models, but also experiential improvement as we begin to actually streamline those processes so more of them go straight through and don't touch people. That means faster, more productive, more productivity comes out of it, but also the accuracy becomes improved. you begin to actually drive a certain amount of just-in-time inventory, or seam-to-ship capability, or in the case of clinical care, improved inventory management and personnel and skill management. And what's happening now in digital is that although the front-end digital is well underway, we're starting to see the first companies really say, my back office systems are actually acting in the old world versus the new 21st century world of operating, right? The 21st century operational companies are looking at new products, new services, new processes, new leadership styles that are much more intimate. And as a result, these back office systems feel very, very as an anti-pattern to that way of thinking, because they haven't changed in 30 years. And so we're seeing a massive shift in the marketplace to look at these processes, both for the productivity that they drive, but also potentially for the revenue and the cultural effect that they begin to have. And so with that, I'm going to kind of turn this over to Troy to kick us off. He's leading this team. He owns our enterprise apps. The enterprise apps are the ones like SAP and others that tend to backstop these enterprise processes. And he and his team are taking a very aggressive approach to helping our clients modernize and transform these processes within the enterprise. So Troy, good morning.
Thanks, Dan. And again, good morning and afternoon, everybody. This is Troy Richardson, and I'm the Senior Vice President for the Enterprise Cloud and Application business. And when you think about what Dan is talking about, the fact that the back end is trying to balance the shift in the market that's going to drive a different business outcome. This is where, DXC has to be right square in the middle of this transformation for our clients. All of our enterprise clients are looking for ways to get a better business outcome, and the decisions they're making are no longer coming just from IT. They're coming from the business drivers that we have to work with in the business to get that desired outcome. This is a challenge and or an opportunity for all of our enterprise-based clients. And the fact that DXC, being one of the largest independent service providers out there, should be right in the middle of helping this transformation for our key clients on the enterprise side. More importantly, we have strategic partners that is paving the way to drive that business decision for our clients. And DXC is lined up with these partners, lined up by the hip with these partners to make sure that we can deliver solutions and technologies that's going to help those business outcomes. Whether it's SAP, focusing on the shift from on-prem solutions to S/4HANA in the cloud, or whether it's Oracle, who has a end-to-end cloud solution, leading from SaaS applications, talking through platform as a service, or even leading with infrastructure service to kind of support that back end to make sure the front end can work. We have a great investment going with our Microsoft Dynamics business. This is a huge growth in the market today. And we've made some acquisitions because we know that this is critical. One of our acquisitions was recently announced, was the TriBridge acquisition. This is going to give us an enormous amount of support and capability to help drive those solutions around Dynamics 365. We also are making investments with our ServiceNow. In IT, you can't leave out IT when you look at this transformation in the market, because people are transforming their IT processes as well. And we've made acquisitions with a partner called Fruition, which is now giving us capabilities to continue to help elevate that process from an IT standpoint. So the point is, DXC has to be squarely in the middle of this opportunity that our enterprise clients will experience and are experiencing. We can be that key provider to help them get there. There's a number of efficiencies that we will drive to help drive those business outcomes. With that said, let me just turn it over to Dr. Chris to give a few more points, and I'll come back in to give some business examples of where this technology is helping to improve processes, decision-making, and innovation. Dr. Chris?
Yeah, I think as Dan and also Troy highlighted, there are some significant changes taking place, not only on the front end that has been prevalent the last 3 or 4 years to improve the customer experience, the mobile experience. And now we're moving actually to a view where we need to combine the front end with the back end. It's about continuously optimizing enterprise processes, meaning end-to-end value streams. Now, if you think of the history of the large enterprise resource planning implementations the last 20 years, they were built on top of strictly primarily functional organizations that were running the processes within their functions and interacting with other functions, marketing to sales, production to logistics, sourcing to procurement and manufacturing, and so forth, with finance being across the whole field. So basically, many of the implementations out there did not have an end-to-end value stream. What we're seeing customers being much more interested in is trying to connect the dots together. For example, a moment, a cancellation of a sales order. What does that mean? How long does it take? So we start talking about cycle time of the service that we're providing to the customer, just as well as the cycle time of products, having full end-to-end visibility. The same with supply chain. Companies are interested in understanding how they can synchronize the full end-to-end supply chain. A change in a store in relation to a trade promotion, how does that respond back into the organization? How quickly can we respond to changes or unavailability of stock on the shelf? So what we're seeing is companies have moved on from the front end, the edges of the actual company, to partners, governments, logistics providers, and certainly customers and competitors to start looking also at the inside, the back office processes, how they can be increasingly digitized. And the key discussion is around intelligence. We're talking about intelligent business processes, processes that can assist the actual people executing, the experts in the process areas, make decisions, and somehow also in the future, as we are learning, even actually shortcut the process and only involve humans on an exception basis. So that's a key trend. What do you think, Dan?
So I'm right there with you, Chris. It's an absolutely key trend. We're seeing I think this robotic process automation is thrown around an awful lot, and I actually want to back it up one step. I think where we talk about HANA is really an information basis. It's designed to allow hyperlinked information, and information is really what underwrites process efficiency. Right now, unfortunately, many processes have a lot of the information stuck in people. And as we really begin to reimagine processes, I think what we begin to recognize is that the key element here is trying to get the information out of people's heads and into systems, and using IoT and other models to gather ever more information so that the processes can improve in their automation and their accuracy and their automation, and potentially also when you move into the AI space, some predictive analytics. Hey, the risk of this transaction is predicted to be too high, and so I want to move it to a stewardship process that supports people versus straight throwing it. And we are seeing this model, but I think the key to unlocking this process space is recognizing that modern processes require much more detailed information than was typically available before. And the people for a long time in process steps have become gophers for information, or owners of information, which is a problem. We have to create collaborators around information, sharers of information, in which that information corpus begins to unlock its true value for these enterprise processes.
Exactly. And this is an important point because, business processes are not static.
Right.
And it's very complicated to build variations for every single occurrence or contextual situation that a person is facing. For example, in pricing and discounts, these are very complicated decisions. Inventory allocations or availability to fulfill an order, these are really, really complicated areas. And there is a limitation. People have found out that there is a limitation to rule-based programming.
Yes.
There is so that drives actually another trend, which is very interesting. We don't know all the data people have as they're making decisions, but we're able to document these decisions. So for example, the pricing or the discounting request that has been done to the supplier has been based on a lot of analysis around who the supplier was, what were the quality of the shipments, what about the products, were there any returns, did they deliver on time? So basically, in the past, these kind of decisions were taking quite a long time because, to Dan's point, if you take HANA as an in-memory database where you combine transactional information and you leverage the same database for analytical information, you can actually have all of these analytics around the actual transactional dashboard. You can see the actual performance of the supplier real time. In the past, you had to go to a separate enterprise data warehouse system. You had to do your searches. You had to print them out. You had to bring them in front of you. And then you had to browse through all this information to figure out what is the right discount rate given the performance of the supplier.
And it wasn't in real time, right? So if you knew that one client was actually returning a product to a depot and you knew another one that was ordering it, right, there's a shortcut there. So we've got so many use cases that are beginning to show that, fundamentally, if you have the rich information, I don't mean the transaction information, but the decoration. If the systems are really cross-wired that actually operationalize a business, right, new process efficiencies can be derived. The other step, though, is continuous improvement. It's actually recognizing that, we need new kinds of process engines to underpin, because the black boxes that operate our environments today don't throw off enough telemetry. And one of the key things I actually, kind of talk about here is that the process space can actually be kind of looked at, as a function. But you actually sometimes want to take the derivative of that function, the meta information around that function, and begin to use that to create some of the improvements. So if you know that a transaction is taking too long for an important customer, maybe you want to do something. If you know that somebody in the loop is actually very inconsistent in their response to clients, maybe you want to do something. Most of the transaction systems we have today don't give you that kind of insight. We go onto a website and they begin to say, hey, you are mousing over, right, a page. You're spending a really long time there. That must mean you're interested. We don't have those same kind of analytics sitting in our internal systems. We don't know when our employees need help and training. We don't know when certain information needs to become more available more quickly to that person to help them to accelerate or to make a better decision. And this is where we're really talking about using those some of those techniques around the meta information use in the front office and bringing those intimately into the back office to substantially change productivity as well as client and employee experience.
Absolutely. I think the point around decision making is very important in transactions. There are transactions that are repeatable, iterative, like entering, for example, purchase requisitions. Many of these transactions can be certainly scripted and automated through robotic process automation. This is literally a task automation. This is something that we have had a lot of experience with, given our background in business process outsourcing. But now we're moving into a second generation of automation where we're trying to understand how the decision was made. What was the pattern behind the decision? We never have all the information the person has in relation to the discounting example I was giving you before. But if you start looking at the data that the person has been using, a pattern starts to emerge. And if you can document the actual decision, then you can start investigating whether machine learning algorithms can actually replicate that pattern of decision making. And I believe in the beginning, for complex decisions and for processes that are very volatile, we need to build assistants, right? Digital assistants rather than decision makers, literally supporting the sourcing officer make a multi-supplier decision on discounting by giving him background, collating all the information that he needs so he can do the actual decision much faster. It's going to take some time before we move into totally automated processes. I think there is a stage process we're going through. And if you look at the actual end-to-end outside-in journey into what happens when an order is requested or an order is canceled, you will be able to identify use cases for areas in your business process value stream that could be actually scripted or task automated, or eventually even use cognitive technologies to start creating the understanding of how decisions were made.
That's where I was going. Right, automation, manual automation, the stuff that we do to automate processes, right, is going to very rapidly give way to ML and AI. It has to.
Exactly.
Right, because the opportunities out there are just too great. So I think you're absolutely right, Dr. Chris. It's a huge landscape. It's too much for anybody to do. And quite honestly, I think teaching people some of the techniques of successful process automation and understanding the edges of those cases is too hard for people from a dimensional perspective. So I do believe this can become the role of ML and AI. And in fact, one of the techniques we're beginning to see, and we talked about this, Chris, was if you had a black box process system, in which you had a historic volume of understanding what requests went in and what responses came out. You could use ML techniques, right? Machine learning techniques, in order to allow the machine to actually learn. Well, given these inputs, these are the outputs. That's a great machine learning opportunity, and you might get away from actually modernizing that legacy system using kind of the more manual techniques of the past, and really allow machines to learn what the behavior should be, and then move yourself into the model in which you're now training the system to take on the new processes, through training sets and the like. So, really interesting opportunities to begin to open up once we begin to really recognize that one of the key pieces that's holding enterprises back is their legacy enterprise systems, right?
Oh, absolutely. Now, a lot of people don't even have the data. I mean, the data is the major asset here, but they don't have the data. So there is a sequencing. You need to think about how you're going to either move into a new digital core with your transactional applications, or how can you offload data from a multitude of systems into a big data repository? This is a strategy that many companies are taking as an intermediate step before they're modernizing their digital core, which might mean tens or hundreds of SAP or Oracle applications and thousands of non-SAP applications, each of them highly specialized with a history and a heritage, right? And we need to find a way to bring the data together, because decisions typically are made across a multitude of applications. You will typically see people swiveling around a number of screens, right? If you go to oil and gas and you look at how plant maintenance is happening in oil and gas rigs, you will see people swiveling across a number of systems, not just because they're not integrated, but because there is additional information into these systems. Now, imagine having the opportunity to have predictive maintenance in, for example, rig piping or steam sensors, giving you a view of what's going on with the actual capacity of a pipe, or chemicals on the actual pipe from the bottom of the sea, from the oil wells up to the actual rig. All this information normally is not treated, is treated in separate silos. So a little bit to Dan's point, we need to find an intermediate solution until companies have the chance to consolidate, harmonize, and modernize their digital core into HANA or the new Oracle Cloud applications or Microsoft 365. We need to have that intermediate solution, because digitization does not wait for anyone.
Totally agree.
Right,
I mean, what's really interesting, right, is that, the vendors that are in our enterprise apps practice are all now totally focused on information, right? Anyone who's talked to SAP over the past 2 years, right, the only word that they know is HANA. Right? That's pretty telling, right? They don't talk about the process anymore. They talk about the value of the information in terms of guiding the next processes, and that's phenomenal. You talk to the Dynamics team, and they talk about the nonstop SQL and the industrial machine learning and the intelligent cloud that backstops it. You talk to Oracle, and Oracle is well known for its data management systems, but they're really recognizing that data has gravity, and if you pull the data together, then all of a sudden it becomes richer as it becomes easier to query and outer join and exploit. So our vendors that are our partners, I shouldn't say vendors, our partners in this space are driving the same model. We just have to wake up and help enterprises to understand that this back office anti-pattern to truly digital enterprises is slowing them down. And why is it slowing them down? This is important. People don't recognize they're trying to create a culture that moves fast, that breaks down silos, that fundamentally uses information to their advantage. And yet at the same time, right, they're still putting people into legacy system that are built in old forms-based tools, or have 400 tabs across the top of the screen that force them to use multiple screens and applications in order to complete a transaction. And so all of a sudden what's happening, right, is that as the culture becomes critical to becoming a 21st century organization, where you have people who are actually driven to make decisions. They're empowered to make new decisions driven by information. We're not giving them the information, or we're making it too difficult for them to get the information, and we're not giving them the opportunity to make that shift. And so, I really push on this enterprise process shift to the full digital processes, because I think that it is probably one of the leading factors of experiential cultural change that can be exploited by enterprises in order to bring that enterprise to really create a visible experience that's different for employees, that's empowering for employees to change that culture. That really is one of the things we find holds clients back. So I'm going to take us over to the crowd chat here in just a second, but I'd like to let Troy just talk real quickly about what he's doing and in terms of this space and how our clients can get in touch with us.
Yeah, and I think you guys are talking about the industry challenge that all of our enterprise customers have to accept and deal with at some point in time. We're talking about changing the way we go to market. We're talking about business outcomes. More importantly, we're talking about being competitive in the market, right? As this market continues to go fast and shift, this spans all industries. It's not limited to any one industry. There are decisions that have to be made as I fix my back end to support the business outcomes I need to drive on the front end based on whatever application that's going to help me be more effective in the market today. They're facing these challenges. Our job at the enterprise application team is to make sure that we point this out, help leverage our infrastructure capabilities, but then help support you in your decision making, because you got lots of options here, and your options are based on the aggressiveness you need to make from an enterprise client standpoint to the market. And that means that some people have to go faster to remain competitive, and some clients or our enterprise decision makers have to move a little slower at a pace to maximize what they're doing today, but know that's a route they have to get to. The key for us is to make sure that we understand these technologies from a DXC standpoint, and bring those technologies, give you choice one, but help you make those timely decisions and understand how this works, not only from our enterprise cloud application business, but because all of our offerings, we have a medley of offerings where it's security or infrastructure or platform. This all comes together as one to help you make the right decision for your enterprise. And that's why we're here, and that's what we're excited about what we do here at DXC from an enterprise cloud application perspective.
Thank you, Troy. And thank you, Dr. Chris. A great session today. We're going to go over now and go to our crowd chat. Just to give everyone the address, it's worldwideweb.crowdchat.net/DXC TechTalk. We really excited to continue this discussion, because I do believe this is probably one of the singular underpinnings of changing the culture in organizations. One is giving them some of the workplace tools that allow them to feel like they're in control of their most productive work environment. But then the other one is make sure that the tools and processes that the enterprise provide are information rich, information dense, and allow employees to make better, faster decisions for the environment, for the enterprise itself. Our next DXC Tech Talk, before I go, will be Thursday, August 17th. 8:30 in the morning, and we'll be talking about the next piece, which is the Agile applications and digital experiences, which again is unwinding the next piece up from the process graph, which is how do people actually need to interact with this information for improved outcome. And we'll be talking with Mike Klaus and JP Morgenthau. So really excited for that one coming up on the 17th, and I hope all of you will join us there then. Now I'm going to take us over, and thank you for your time this morning, and we're going to head over to the crowd chat to continue this discussion for a half hour or so. So thank you very much, Troy and Dr. Chris.
Thank you.
Heather and Radka for putting this together, and Glenn, of course, for being such an example of how we need to intersect differently with our clients. And let's head over to crowd chat. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.